This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. I wasn't going to do a video today, but I've been watching the news and I'm getting a bit frustrated, especially with these kinds of headlines. GB News is reporting that Meghan is deeply concerned about Catherine's health. I don't know who this royal author is, Tom Quinn, but he is alleging that Meghan reached out to Catherine because she's so worried. Like, does anybody believe that? And even if Meghan was reaching out, do you honestly think that she was reaching out to Catherine because she cares? She would be reaching out to find out what is going on so she could use it to her advantage. I mean, honestly, Meghan is the last person that should even consider thinking about dialing or uttering Catherine's name. This woman has caused so much stress on this family. And like today, I've been thinking about all the vicious things that this woman has done and like is acting as if, oh, she is the saint. She is the one who is extending these olive branches and trying to repair this broken relationship with this family, a family that she continuously has attacked from the day that she left the firm. Honestly, I just can't stand this anymore. I can't stand seeing how Catherine is being attacked, and the media is feeding into it. The media is going along with it, and they are allowing and giving this woman a platform. Quite frankly, Meghan is the biggest bully that has ever existed or I've ever seen, and what she has done, it just blows my mind that the family doesn't put their foot down, draw the line, and just remove these kids from the line of succession, remove Harry from the line of succession, strip the titles, and get rid of them for once and for all because they are causing so much damage. In my opinion, Rachel Meghan Markle is a sadist. She enjoys and gets off on seeing people suffering and in pain, especially if they're people that she wants to get back at because she's petty like that. Let's go back in time to remind everyone as to this coward's behavior in kicking people when they were down just because she has some score to settle. Remember when Prince Philip was dying in hospital? These two went on Oprah and they spewed a whole vicious amount of lies. There was no compassion. There was no thought as to how this was going to affect the family, particularly the Queen, when in the last month of Prince Philip's life, the Queen had to deal with Meghan Markle's bullshit and the fallout that it caused globally. Think about that. The stress that the family must have felt when they had to do damage control and then on top of it process that their grandson was a traitor. After all the Queen had done for Meghan and also her ungrateful grandson, they made her cry. There was no remorse, there was no apology, there was no self-reflection. Let's not forget that during the Queen's last year and in her last months, Meghan made it miserable for her. It's been nothing but lies upon lies. And just think, the Queen went to her grave thinking that the world thought her family was racist. To me, it's unforgivable. And I'm sorry, but these journalists should be ashamed of themselves when they're reporting about Meghan's rebrand. I don't care how many times Meghan has to rebrand. It's not going to change the fact that she did these things. I think what has been going on recently between the journalists and the media is shameful, surrounding Prince William and Catherine. Not only are they not allowing this woman to rest, but they're also adding additional stress to the family. Undeserved, but we know who's behind it. Now, here's what I don't understand. With all the viciousness and nastiness coming out of Montecito, permeating all over social media as well as in the news streams, I'd like to understand why the palace, in this instance, has not either squashed some of these stories, because we know that they have, and, we know that they have pulled stuff down or gotten things taken down. Why is it in this instance, which would be appropriate in this case, in my humble opinion, they didn't do it for Catherine? I mean, this woman hasn't put a foot wrong. She literally is the crown jewel of the family. Knowing that she is recuperating from a serious illness, and I sure hope that she is getting better, they didn't take more of a stance around this. And then on top of it, allowing Prince William to be attacked with these vicious rumors that had been started by Meghan's camp. We know this. We have the receipts and evidence of it. So, what's really going on here? Well, it's obvious. It's all deflection. And we, the public, are fools for getting sucked into it. Take, for example, GB News. Look at all the stories that are reporting on useless garbage about Meghan and Harry, as well as stoking the fire with Catherine. And the thing is that the views are not even impressive for it. So why are they cranking out this garbage? And as you can see, it's the same thing for Talk TV. So what is really going on? Why are they not reporting on real news? Such as what's going on with African parks. There's been very little since the initial story broke, and now another story has come out to where further allegations are coming up of more human rights abuses that include killings and violent beatings. Why is this not getting more attention? This is what we should be really talking about. But instead, the media is participating in fueling, giving life to these rumors that are flying around of an alleged affair, as well as, is Catherine dead? I mean, folks, the palace said that she will not be back until after Easter. What do you not understand? And the sad part about it is that we are proving Meghan right, even though we know that Meghan is behind creating all this misinformation, disinformation, and putting it out there using the media. In fact, she's weaponized the media. She is making the case to show that this is why we need regulation, this is why we need censorship, and we're all falling for it, hook, line, and sinker. It is evidently clear that Meghan and Harry are flipping the script and turning it back on to William and Catherine to show that, oh, they were right all along with this media intrusion. Look how bad they are. Look at how they attack people. Look at all the conspiracy theories that come up. Look what happened when Meghan was pregnant, allegedly. And this is because Meghan and Harry have ruined their credibility because they're nothing but liars and they can't bounce back from it. So what are they going to do? They're going to tarnish someone else's reputation to bring them down to where they are. This is what we are seeing currently happen. Personally, I think that this is for Meghan to redeem herself as part of this crusade that they have been on in order to control and censor the internet. I must admit, it's exhausting having to direct people's attention back into the space of where we're not looking. Now, don't get me wrong, I equally have been sucked into a lot of this clickbait crap. But what I realized quickly is that they are not telling us anything new that we didn't know before about Meghan Markle's bad behavior, as well as who is behind a lot of this stuff. And in some cases, I just can't even get 2 minutes into a segment because it's a lot of gaslighting, especially since we have been screaming for the last 6 years of these tactics of what has been going on and completely ignoring how Meghan and Harry have weaponized the media. And I think that should be topics that these journalists should be digging into because at the end of the day, it's going to affect them if they win and get their way. What we have to understand is there is an active campaign here on the left. As you can see, these magazines have Catherine all over it. It's the first time I've seen Meghan not being talked about or even positioned anywhere on here, which I believe is because they have shifted their strategy on how they attack the family, period. This is not about putting Meghan as the victim anymore. This is about going after two people and ruining and blackening their reputation. Now, the one thing I want you to take away from this video is noticing that the way that Meghan and Harry attack the royal family now, it is similar to how politicians attack their opponents. We saw this tactic being done in the Netflix mockumentary. We also saw this done in Meghan attacking Catherine in Omid Scobie's book. Now what we're seeing here with the family being out of commission for a little bit, Meghan taking advantage of smearing not only Catherine, but also her husband at the same time. The reality in the United States, mainstream media is controlled by the left, which unofficially is controlled by the US government under the Biden administration. All the tactics that Meghan has been using and the people that they have aligned with are now all under scrutiny for being a part of this censorship complex in which it's starting to rear its ugly head with multiple lawsuits starting to ramp up. Beginning with Monday, the Supreme Court will be hearing the case Missouri versus Biden or Missouri versus Murthy, which is the Surgeon General, the one that Meghan and Harry teamed up with on Mental Health Day. The left-wing media has been in a tailspin over this the last couple days, with Google prioritizing articles that fit the narrative that the government wants you to believe, because there was collusion with the social media big tech platforms and pulling content down, especially during the election and during COVID, of which we know that Meghan and Harry were a part of this scheme because they were pulling down Twitter accounts, they were pulling down YouTube accounts, all in conjunction with this censorship industrial complex. Now, what I'm trying to figure out is why aren't more people talking about this? Is it because it doesn't interest the viewer? Or is it because the platform is legitimately suppressing anyone who talks about this stuff because they are involved with it? Now, prior to these lawsuits, many accounts from the conservative side had been pulled down from, and I can speak to YouTube and what we have been seeing. In parallel, at the same time, many Megxit accounts were being targeted and demonetized and pulled down. Are they related? Absolutely. Meghan and Harry are tied to this complex. So, what was happening to conservatives as well as Megxit communities is a result of what was going on with this censorship, which is now being contested in the court of law. And we had this community front row seats to witnessing accounts being demonetized and deplatformed as a result of sharing opinions about propaganda that Meghan had been saturating the public domain with. We were going down in batches, just like how the conservatives were, all at the same time. In addition, those that spoke out about the COVID vaccine and adverse reaction to it, the government didn't want to hear that. So they were grouped into a list and they were also pulled down. And this is what the argument is about tomorrow. The government colluded with social media platforms to get speech taken down. And those that were going in batches on those lists, no doubt, included the Megxit accounts. We know that Boozy and the Sussex Squad were a part of this whole scheme in compiling those lists for Meghan and Harry. And this is what happened. We know that Boozy was directly communicating with Twitter and sending these lists over. He did it with Samantha to get her pulled down. Now, this video that I did 8 days ago, which not many people seemed interested in or perhaps maybe weren't notified about, does talk about the CIA and their involvement with U.S. aid. It's all connected, and Harry and Meghan are very much a part of this, doing the bidding for the government in this censorship initiative. Now, before I close this video off, I want to show you something. This is Mike Benz. And he is a former U.S. State Department official who had responsibility in formulating and negotiating U.S. foreign policy on international communications and information technology matters. He has been sounding the alarm, exposing the Biden regime and the mass coordinated initiative to censor Americans. Just to give you a taste of what has been going on and how Meghan and Harry are involved, listen to his explanation about media literacy.
About the media literacy scam. Now, this is something that I've been talking about for 5, almost 6 years about this specific scam, but it's accelerated in the past year, and it's really, really accelerated just in the past month, faster than I was expecting it to. And so I want to try to get it out to other people to focus on this while I'm doing other mission critical things. Media literacy, the scam works like this, okay? They're rolling it out in the education system. And they're rolling it out at colleges. They're rolling it out at the science level in academia. They're rolling it out at the researcher level and at the censorship for-profit institution level. But they're also especially embedding it at the K through 12 level. And what is it? What is media literacy? When you hear the words media literacy, you fixate on the word literacy, and you think they're talking about underserved, underprivileged inner city schools with kids who can't read. Because we have an epidemic of illiteracy and low literacy rates among a lot of our youth. So you hear that word literacy and you think that's what they're talking about. That is not what it is at all. Media literacy says if you don't read the right media sources, official state-backed media or government sources or regime-compliant media, then you are illiterate. You are media illiterate. And you need to get your mind right to read the right media sources. So media literacy is just regime media installation. And it is about institutional embedding of censorship organs within K through 12 schools, within higher ed, and then at the capacity building side by tons and tons of government money propping this up. Now, let's just go through a couple of levels of this. So the methods, media literacy is literally about training you to be stupid, to be dumb. The underlying presupposition of the field, the illegitimate field of media literacy, is that if you do critical thinking, you will become a heretic. You will become a wrong thinker, a dissident, a heterodox person. If you think critically, if you go down the rabbit hole, if you do your own independent research, you will not trust the regime. You will not trust the system. You will not trust government narratives. You won't trust legacy mainstream media. And so they teach methods. The curriculums for media literacy programs are about how not to do your own research. I'm not joking. You can look all this up. For example, the SIFT method is one of these core things that have been developed. And it just says when you have a research topic and you want to look something up for school, you want to look something up in your own private time, don't go down the rabbit hole. Don't think independently. Sift through the top 10 results of a Google search and Wikipedia approved sources. Now, mind you, Wikipedia currently lists Elon Musk as a far-right conspiracy theorist and bans the ability to even have most conservative or centrist outlets even allowed to be cited. So it pre-bans the ability to even access news institutions that might challenge government narratives. Okay, this is Clockwork Orange on steroids, and it's being mandated by governments. And this is the part that I was not expecting to happen so fast. Okay, the state of California just last week passed a mandatory media literacy law requiring every public K through 12 school in the entire state to have mandatory media literacy classes. Now, every single actor in the censorship industry is doing touchdown dances, spinning the basketball, with one finger, Wilt Chamberlain, Harlem Globetrotter style, just stunting on the rest of the world that's had its eyes closed, because this is millions and millions of dollars that automatically flow into their pockets, because it is mandatory, government-required capacity building to do this, okay? There are going to be 10,000 people, at least, just in the schools in California systems, who are going to need to be these teachers in all these classes, K through 12. You are going to need to train an army of educators on how not to trust alternative news or Elon Musk's vision at X, or social media influencers who disagree on public health or on electoral politics or on environmental issues or on abortion or on immigration or energy or any of that, okay? All of it. So again, it's not just the curriculum. That's actually only a tiny part of it. It's the civil society capacity building. That's just mandatory government money to a censorship mercenary army in charge of your kids. That just passed in California. It already passed in Illinois. It's already in Rhode Island. It's now in New York. This industry could not support itself. And while there is success right now at the federal level with things that have been done around these major class action lawsuits, Missouri v. Biden, the America First lawsuit, the congressional investigations and subpoenas, they're going down into the state governments and one by one capacity building the industry to destroy the alternative news industry. And this has got to be challenged before it gets its roots down, because they're going to make the argument, if we don't stop it now, they're going to make the argument that you're going to have hundreds of thousands of public employees who are going to be put out of a job if you kill media literacy later. Which is to say, they're going to make the same argument that coal miners in West Virginia would make. Well, if you shut down the mine, you're going to put all these people out of jobs. They're training a generation of censorship professionals tied to the teat of government-backed censorship operations. Their careers are going to be attached to this. They will be out of jobs. They won't be able to provide for their families if you take away their censorship jobs. That's literally going to be the world we're going to be in if this thing isn't killed now. So there's a lot to do on this, but I just want to drop this now. And just every time you hear the word media literacy, or you see someone who say that, drop this link in those replies.
I really hope that you made it this far, and if that didn't wake you up, I'd like to show you evidence that Meghan and Harry are on board with this. Remember when they said that unnamed sources will no longer speak for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? The Telegraph reported the move was aimed at boosting, get this, media literacy. Tomorrow is a big day, and it's a shame that more people are not talking about it because it is a historic case that's being heard at the Supreme Court level. The Telegraph reported the move was aimed at boosting, get this, media literacy.
Missouri versus Biden is being argued at the Supreme Court, and it is, as we've talked about before, it's the most important free speech case in the history of the country, certainly in a generation, because it deals with the federal government in this vast censorship enterprise coercing, colluding, cajoling these social media giants to censor speech. And what the judge found at the lower court, when I filed it when I was Attorney General in Missouri, what the judge found at the lower court was that this was almost exclusively conservatives being censored. It reeked of viewpoint discrimination, which violates the First Amendment. And it was Orwellian. I mean, what was uncovered, Glenn, were tens of thousands of pages of emails and text messages from high-ranking government officials to social media giants saying, take it down, or we're going to launch an investigation, or we're going to, we're going to sue you under antitrust issues. I mean, really, the full power of the federal government was being used to suppress dissent, to silence Americans. And so that's been shown in the case. And so that now it's been appealed by the government. They want to continue to censor people, and the Supreme Court's going to hear oral arguments on that on Monday. If it wasn't for this lawsuit, Glenn, and then later Elon Musk buying Twitter with the Twitter files, and then later some of the congressional hearings, this stuff would still be in the dark. You know, it would still be a conspiracy theory, but it was happening. And what we refer to it in the lawsuit is a vast censorship enterprise. The number of agencies and people involved here is breathtaking. And the, sometimes willing behavior of social media companies to comply and deplatform and censor people. But in some instances, they actually didn't want to do it.
How is this going to affect the new systems that they're putting in for mis and disinformation and the government's, work with Five Eyes and with social media and the rest of the media, where they are just training them and guiding them through mis and disinformation? Will this case have anything to do with that? Because that's upon us right now.
Absolutely. And so that is the intention of this, too, is to bust that up. Because there's agencies like CISA that most people have never heard of.
Right.
But was very involved, Glenn.
Explain to the audience what CISA is.
It's basically the agency that was created not that long ago to deal with sort of cybersecurity.
Right.
Okay. And what it found itself doing during COVID in particular was, under the guise of disinformation and misinformation, as you clearly articulated, that's a ploy by wannabe tyrants to control speech.
Yes.
The truth of the matter is, you get to say your opinion, even if somebody else thinks it's wrong. The government doesn't get to shut that down. The government doesn't get to tell you what you can say and what you can hear. It's up to the individual to decipher what they, how they want to move forward and what they, as they analyze facts and what their decisions are, right? It was sort of like, the other thing that was exposed in this too, Glenn, is there were universities, the University of Washington and Stanford were involved with helping, sort of determine what the disinformation and misinformation was. So again, they're outsourcing this to their sort of web of allies to censor Americans. And this case would prevent that. This case, if the court rules the right way, and I hope that they do, it would essentially, there would be an injunction on all these agencies from engaging in that kind of activity. That'd be a huge win. Now, no matter what happens, the case, of course, stands for exposing all of this. But the remedy that hopefully will play out is preventing this. But as we've talked about before, I've got legislation in the Senate that would empower individuals to sue individual government actors if they've been censored, if they're right to
that would be helpful.
Censored. You can go sue. Yeah, it would, because instead of just one AG in a state suing, you'd have an army of citizens being able to stand up for their First Amendment rights.
Now, I've been saying this for a while now, that this is the case that we should all be paying attention to, because if this goes in the favor of the people and deeming that, yes, the government did violate Americans' First Amendment rights, then the floodgates are going to open up, and Prince Harry and Meghan, need to really look at what's going to happen to them should the people find out that we had a foreign prince on U.S. soil undermining the U.S. Constitution, because technically Prince Harry was acting on behalf of the state as a foreign agent. Now, that doesn't look so good when the media blows that up, especially we have the Heritage Foundation now trying to get his visa information. And for whatever reason, the department that has been pulling this shit is the one who will not release Harry's visa information. So this is why we all need to pay attention a little bit more. Okay?
What they really fear is that individuals will then, take different inputs and make up their own minds, as opposed to three networks that tell you everything they want you to hear. Mm-hmm. And again, I just think that we ought to be unafraid, I think, as conservatives, to talk about this. Is about freedom. This is about liberty. This is about making up your own mind. And they know how powerful that idea is. They absolutely. So what's the game plan? You saw it play out in COVID, which is create a crisis, whether it's real or manufactured, right?
Yep.
And then you consolidate power, you fearmonger, the othering of those who are dissenting. I mean, go back in time just a little bit. They were, in Australia, which we thought was kind of like us, but with cute animals. They had camps. I
know.
They had camps. People were being arrested in parks for not wearing masks. I mean, we can't memory hole all this stuff. That is a glimpse of the kind of world that some of these folks want to live in if you disagree with the regime. And we have to fight back with everything we have to make sure that doesn't happen. And that it also depends on us defending somebody else's right to say something we really disagree with. That's sort of the hallmark of it. But they want to bulldoze all that going in to have a regime narrative, and anybody that stands in the way is othered, marginalized, called all sorts of names, lose their job, deplatformed. I mean, that is so this whole lecture we get from Joe Biden on threats to democracy. We have seen the threat. We have seen the threat, and it is Joe Biden's administration with this censorship enterprise and trying to throw political opponents in jail. So I think people are waking up to this, and I think we just got to stand up for it.
If you made it to the end of this video, thank you. I truly appreciate it. As you can see how important this is, that for whatever reason, journalists are not thinking or choosing to cover it. And, they have to recognize that this is going to affect them as well if they don't speak up. I only have a small footprint. My voice can only carry so much, but I depend on you guys to help get this information out and to help me wake more people up. So do the kid a favor, please. Like the video, but also share it, because I'm not necessarily sure anymore that liking the video matters, because YouTube is still currently censoring. They are quietly behind the scenes demonetizing channels with views or perspectives that whoever, like a Meghan, could write into and say that they don't like, which we know that Meghan and Harry do have contacts with the executives, or they could be speaking to these executives and telling them to throttle and shadow ban our channels, which I believe truly is what is happening to all of us. But what do you guys think? Definitely leave your thoughts below. Also, let me know if you want to see more content explaining the connections that Meghan and Harry have with all the people that are involved with censoring. I'm not necessarily sure if this is content that you guys appreciate. If you want the mindless garbage and gossip, I can do that too. You just have to let me know. But definitely leave your thoughts. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I will talk to you later. Bye.
You're such a fraud.